Salutations, traveler. I'm your host, Brad Rademacher, and this is Radical Psychedelia. In today's videocast, we will be covering 4 modern personalities of self-empowerment: David Icke, Terence McKenna, Carl G. Jung, and Manly P. Hall. I'm making this video because I think what these men have to say is important. And I also feel and see underlying aspects of truth and the nature of the self within these messages. So first, I'm just going to read a little bit about David Icke here for you. David von Icke is an English writer and public speaker and former footballer and sports broadcaster. Icke has made his name since the 1990s as a professional conspiracy theorist, calling himself full-time investigator into who and what is really controlling the world. He is an author of over 20 books and numerous DVDs, and has lectured in over 25 countries, speaking for up to 10 hours to audiences that cut crosses across political spectrums. Icke was a BBC television sports presenter and spokesman for the Green Party when a psychic told him in 1990 that he had been placed on Earth for a purpose and would begin to receive messages from the spirit world. The following year, he announced that he was the Son of the Godhead and that he would be soon devastated by tidal waves and earthquakes, a prediction he repeated on BBC's primetime show Wogan. The show changed his life, turning him from a respected household name into someone who was laughed at whenever he appeared in public. Over the next 7 years, in Robots and Rebellion, 1994, and The Truth Shall Set You Free, 1995, The Biggest Secret, 1999, and The Children of the Matrix, 2001, he developed his worldview of New Age conspiracism. He endorsed His endorsement of the anti-Semitic forgery to the protocols of the Elders of Zion in the Robots' Rebellion, combined with the Holocaust denial in The Truth Shall Set You Free, led to his publisher refuse to publish his books, which were then self-published after. At the heart of his stories lies the idea that mainly prominent figures belong to the Babylonian Brotherhood, a group of shape-shifting reptilian humanoids who are propelling humanity towards a global fascist state, New World Order. The reptilians use the rings of Saturn to move all reptilian constructs to broadcast our five-sense prison, an artificial sense of self in the world that humans perceive as reality. Michael Birkin has described Icke's position of New Age conspiracyism, writing that Icke is the most fluent of the genre. Richard Kahn and Tyson Lewis argue that Icke's reptilian hypothesis may be Swiftian satire, offering a narrative which ordinary people can question what they see in the world around them. Icke has been described as an anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist, according to Political Research Associates. His policies are a mishmash of the most dominated themes in contemporary neo-fascism, mixed with the smattering of topics culled from U.S. militant movement. So I definitely suggest looking him up. He's a British news personality. This part where they say Swift and satire is a playback to Jonathan Swift. He was, here it says, a playwright who did a lot of wordplay. So that makes sense. And then next I'm going to lead us into Terence McKenna. Terence Kemp McKenna was an American ethnobotanist, mystic, psychonaut, lecturer, author, and advocate for the responsible use of naturally occurring psychedelic plants. He spoke and wrote about a variety of subjects, including psychedelic drugs, plant-based entheogens, shamanism, metaphysics, alchemy, language, philosophy, culture, technology, environmentalism, and the theoretical origins of human consciousness. He was called the Timothy Leary of the 90s, one of the leading authorities on the ontological foundations of shamanism and the intellectual voice of rave culture. McKenna formulated the concept about the nature of time based on fractal patterns. He claimed to have discovered in the I Ching, which he called novelty theory, proposing the predicted end of the time in the year 2012. His promotion of novelty theory was connected to the Mayan calendar and created one of the factors leading to the widespread beliefs about the 2012 eschatology. Novelty theory is considered pseudoscience. Terence McKenna and his archaic revival is one of the main themes running through his lifelong work, and the title of his second book. It was the idea that Western civilization was undergoing an archaic revival. His notion was that Western society had become sick and was undergoing a healing process in the same way the human body begins to produce antibodies. When it feels itself to be sick, humanity as a collective Humanity as a collective in the whole Jungian sense was creating strategies for overcoming the conditions of dis-ease and trying to cure itself by what he termed as a reversion to archaic values. McKenna pointed to the phenomena including the surrealism, abstract expressionism, body piercing and tattooing, psychedelic drug use, and sexual permissiveness, jazz music, experimental dance, rave culture, rock and roll, and catastrophe theory, amongst others, as his evidence that this process was underway. This idea is linked to McKenna's stoned ape theory of human evolution, with him viewing the archaic revival as an impulse to return to the symbiotic and blissful relationship he believed humanity once held with the psilocybin mushroom. It is differentiating in his ideas from New Age, a term that he has trivialized in the significance of the phase of the human evolution. McKenna stated that the New Age is essentially a humanistic psychology 80s style, with the addition of neo-shamanism, channeling, and crystal herbal healing. The archaic revival is a much larger global phenomena that assumes that we are recovering social forms of the late Neolithic and reaches back into the 20th century to the Freudian, to surrealism, to expressionism, even to the phenomenon like National Socialism, which is a negative force. But the stress on ritual, on organized activity, on race and ancestor consciousness, these are themes that have been worked out through the entire 20th century, and the archaic revival is an expression of that. And if any of you that are watching this are already knowledgeable with Terence McKenna, you would know that his biggest message at the end of the day was that you need to bring back ideas, that humanity is suffering because we have a lack of ideas. And so a part of the whole reason I wanted to make this video was to spread ideas. So this is my archaic revival. All right, and then next, the whole Jungian sense of things. Also, then, this is old news, very old philosopher Carl Jung. You should definitely know about him if you don't already. Carl Gustav Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who founded the analytical psychology. His work has been influential not only in psychiatry but also in anthropology, archaeology, literature, philosophy, and religious studies. As a notable research scientist based in the famous Berkeley Hospital, Eugen Buehler, he came to the attention of the Venice founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. The two men conducted a lengthy correspondence and collaborated on an initially joint vision of human psychology. Freud saw in the younger man the potential heir he had been seeking to carry on his new science of psychoanalysis. Jung's research and personal vision, however, made it impossible for him to bend to the will of his older colleagues' dogma, and breach became inevitable. This break was to have a historic as well as painful personal repercussions that have lasted to this day. Only latterly has it become clear how much Jung owed to his fortuitous marriage to the heiress Emma Rosenbach, who was devoted to him, forgiving and probably his intellectual equal. Jung was also an artist, craftsman, and builder, as well as a prolific writer. Many of his works were not published until after his death, and some are still awaiting publication. Among the central concepts of analysis in psychology is individualization, the lifelong psychological process of the differentiation of the self out of each individual's conscious and unconscious elements. Jung considered it to be the main task of human development. He created some of the best known psychological concepts, including synchronicity, archetypal phenomena, and collective unconsciousness, the psychological complex, extroversion, and introversion. This is bread and butter. This is bread and butter. You gotta know about him. Carl Jung. Right, and then our last one for today is a man that goes by the name of Manly P. Hall. Manly P. Hall. Career as a philosopher. During the early 1930s, using money from the Lloyds, Hall traveled to France and England, where he acquired his most extensive collection of rare books and manuscripts in alchemy and esoteric fields from the London auctioneer Sotheby and Company. Though an agent due to the desperate through an agent due to the depressed economic conditions of the era, Hall was able to buy a substantial number of rare books and manuscripts at reasonable prices. When the Caroline Lie died in 1946, she bequeathed Hall home $15,000 in cash and a roughly $10,000 portion of her estate and annual income from shares to the world's largest oil company for 38 years. In 1934, Hall founded the Philosophical Research Society (PRS) in Los Angeles, California, at a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the study of religion and mythological metaphysics and the occult. He was a knight patron of the Masonic Research Group of the San Francisco, with which he had associated for a number of years prior to his Masonic affiliations. On June 28, 1954, Hall initiated as a Freemason into the Jewel Lodge No. 347, San Francisco, now the United Lodge. Passed September 20th, 1954, and raised November 22nd, 1954, he took the Scottish Rite degrees a year later. He later received his 32nd degree in Valley of the San Francisco AASR. On December 8th, in 1973, 47 years after writing The Secret Teachings of All Ages, Hall was recognized as a 33rd degree Mason in the highest honor conferred by the Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite, at a ceremony in the Philosophical Research Society. In over his 70-year career, Hall delivered approximately 8,000 lectures in the United States abroad, authored over 150 books and essays, and wrote countless magazine articles. He appeared in the introduction into the film 1938, When You Were Born, a murder mystery that used astrology as a key plot. It also was noteworthy that Manly P. Hall wrote original story for the film, screenplay by Anthony Holdway, and it is also credited that he is the narrator. In 1942, Manly Hall spoke to an audience at Carnegie Hall on the secret destiny of America, which later became the book of the same title. He returned in 1945 for another well-attended lecture at the famous venture titled Plato's Prophecy of Worldwide Democracy. So, in summary, all of these men were trying to help people across the world better understand themselves, trying to help people have a deeper philosophies and psychologies and ideas, making time to do independent research, and you'll find that what these guys are saying is do independent research, because someone else's knowledge is no good to you if you don't know them. This has been another episode of Radical Psychedelia with your host, Brad Rademacher. Salutations, traveler. Thank you for your time and your attention. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Namaste, and thank you.